Good evening, I'm Linor Moudou. This is Africa 54. Vincent McCurry is off today. Allegations of sexual abuse and sexual exploitation has caused the United Nations to change the leadership of its peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic. The fallout from the ongoing problem has led to the forced resignation of the top UN envoy in the CAR, Lieutenant General Babacar Gaye, a long-time Senegalese diplomat and military officer. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon praised General Gaye for his contributions to the UN mission, but says he had to send a strong message about problems of sexual abuse.
When the United Nations deploys peacekeepers, we do so to protect the world's most vulnerable people in the world's most desperate places. I will not tolerate any action that causes people to replace trust with fear. Those who work for the United Nations must uphold our highest ideals.
The United Nations has no authority over the prosecution of any troops deployed in its missions. It can only repatriate accused perpetrators with the expectation that their home country will prosecute them. For more on the allegations of sexual abuse and the decision to remove General Gaye from his post, VOA's Margaret Besheer joins us live from the United Nations. Hello, Margaret.
Hello, Lenore.
So, Margaret, the resignation of Mr. Gaye sends a strong message, as the Secretary General has suggested. Tell us about what this means.
Well, it does send a strong signal. Yesterday, Mr. Ban's spokesman, Stéphane Dujarric, said in his 15 years at the UN, he had never seen this happen before. Basically, General Gaye was fired because he was asked for his resignation. So it is rather unprecedented. It's meant to send a strong message. The Secretary General wants all his other special representatives at other peacekeeping missions, his force commanders, his police commissioners. He wants them to know that if this continues to happen, they will be held accountable. He has a zero-tolerance policy in effect in the United Nations for sexual exploitation and abuse, and now he really needs to enforce it.
So to what extent will this action and other actions that are being taken make a difference, really, especially with regards to this problem in the CAR that has been out there for quite a while now, according to reports?
Right. Well, the CAR problem is really unique. It started before the UN deployed there. There was the French force Sangaris there. There were some African peacekeepers there as well. Those were the first allegations were made against that group of peacekeepers. The UN came under fire because the way they handled the reporting of it. In this case, though, it is UN peacekeepers deployed under the UN flag. And the problem is, as you mentioned, the UN cannot prosecute them. The UN has to send them back to the home country and expect that their home country will investigate and, if necessary, prosecute the persons responsible for these crimes. And so it's very difficult for the UN to do too much about it. So that's why they have to send this message that it has to come from the top down. You have to have control of your troops. If they're under you, they have to respect you. They have to respect your chain of command and listen to what you say so that these things won't happen.
And what type of other actions are expected, perhaps, with this same issue?
Well, today the Secretary General has asked the Security Council to meet. He's going to brief them in a private meeting and on this issue. And he's also holding this afternoon with his special representatives, his force commanders, and his police commissioners at all UN peacekeeping missions around the world. He's holding a joint sort of video conference call with them where I think he's going to lay down the law and tell them, you know, General Gaye is not the only one who's going to lose his job if this continues. Now, so he's sending out a strong message.
Okay. Now, Margaret, turning to a different subject, Ebola. You just came out of a meeting. The UN just wrapped up a meeting on Ebola. There seems to be some good news. Tell us about that.
Yes, Dr. Margaret Chan, who's the Director General of the World Health Organization, told the Security Council a little while ago that she believes if things continue as they are, they will be able to defeat Ebola in West Africa by the end of this year. She said Liberia is again Ebola-free, not Ebola-free technically, but they have had no new cases reported. They need to be 42 days before they are 42 days without a new case before they are technically Ebola-free. But they haven't had any cases for a while now, and Guinea and Sierra Leone combined, only 3 cases in the last 2 weeks, which is a huge improvement. So it's great news from West Africa.
And did Mrs. Chan talk about what it will take for the final push?
Well, they're just, she said that the contact tracing and the things that they need to do are so much more improved. The burials are so much more improved. So it's just a question of, I think, containing these 3 cases. Hopefully there won't be any transmissions to anybody else. And then they can begin the countdown, hopefully, to the 42 days of no new cases. So they're hoping by the end of the year. But she did caution that progress can be reversible. We saw that in Liberia in June. They were declared Ebola-free, no new cases for 42 days, but then because it's still existing in the region, they did report a few new cases. So she was very clear. We need 0 cases before we can say we're Ebola-free.
Thank you, Margaret. We hope for the best. Thank you so much for your reporting. And that was VOA UN correspondent Margaret Besheer reporting live from New York. Still in the CAR, the nation's former president, François Bozizé, says he will return from exile to run a presidential election in October, just 2 years after he was forced from power. His return has raised many questions as the government that succeeded him issued an international warrant for his arrest in 2013. It accuses him of crimes against humanity and incitement to genocide. Thousands of fighters from the rebel coalition Seleka, angered by what they say was Bozizé's refusal to honor an earlier peace deal, toppled him in March 2013 after 10 years in power, forcing Bozizé to flee to neighboring Cameroon. A transitional court will rule on who is eligible to run. The CAR's constitution does not prevent Bozizé from running again.